The much-delayed Forspoken unfortunately may have needed a bit more time in development, as the finished product makes for a rough adventure. There are some impressive mechanics buried somewhere deep within it, but they're often swallowed up by classic open-world chaff, a lackluster narrative, and at times dreadful animation. The promise of effortlessly juggling a number of different spells while jumping around an attractive fantasy landscape is held back by the unfortunate reality of what it's actually like, a lovely dream that isn't quite held up by its implementation.
Okay, that is something I do now. I do magic, kill jacked up beasts. I'll probably fly next.
Forspoken is underpinned by a number of standard RPG tropes. Protagonist Frey Holland, an orphan from New York, is whisked away to a fantasy land of Athia through a magical portal after unintentionally finding herself as the bearer of a sentient bracelet called Cuff that absolutely will not shut up.
Oh, hello, yes. Oh, perhaps you're smarter than you look.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Upon arrival, she discovers that the world is in a bad way, with a corruptive break spreading throughout and the last remnants of humanity living in the single break-free capital. Enter Frey, who can mysteriously survive in the break and also use magic. She rather reluctantly comes to the help of the people for what are admittedly selfish reasons. First and foremost, she wants to go home, and the initial set of NPCs point her in the direction of some enemies to fight. But then things get complicated, and there are more enemies to fight, and that gets further complicated, and so on and so forth, until you're about 22 hours in. That said, the critical path of Forspoken is just one small slice of what the game actually has to offer. The ruins of Athia are littered with different landmarks to collect equipment, like cloaks or necklaces, monuments to cat familiars, and Athia's magical rulers, the Tantas. Break-corrupted infestations to clear out, abandoned guilds to explore, and, much more, the standard stuff. So at no point did I ever feel that I didn't have something to do on the map, which is both a blessing and a curse, depending on your level of investment in the world. It's been clear from the moment Forspoken was revealed that a major selling point would be the magical parkour, offering Frey the ability to traverse the world swiftly and without much trouble. In practice, this does largely bear out, and scooting across and over the landscape is just as satisfying as it looked in all of the promo videos. I've also got a problem with Forspoken's magic system too. There's just so much there, but only a fraction of it is actually necessary. The problem with Forspoken's relatively massive library of magical spells is twofold. Picking and choosing which spells to invest in can be a bit of a headache, and the vast majority of them become available so late in the game that there's essentially no impetus to even bother doing so. I found that I rarely felt the need to mix things up beyond shifting between different schools of spells. There are essentially 4 types of spells: support, attack, surge, and pure utility. I can count on one hand the number of times I felt compelled to actually change a support spell to something else, instead of simply shifting it to a different element altogether. Forspoken's mistake here seems to be confusing the technical limitations inherent to providing so many options with meaningful choice. Both mechanically and narratively, I can't think of a single meaningful choice I had to make beyond where to spend my time. After initially doing quite a bit of exploring in all the nooks and crannies of Athia, I chose to focus my attention instead of the main quest, and only the main quest. It's just unfortunate that said main quest is so dull. Barring a few rare set pieces, Forspoken seems to prefer to tell rather than show. Storytelling 101 issues aside, the main quest didn't help endear me to Frey or Cuff at all. Who are the 2 main characters? The kindest thing I can say about Forspoken is that it's aggressively fine. The good and the bad parts are roughly equal, such that it comes to be, in summation, an exceptionally middling experience. Magical parkour is exhilarating, but not really backed up by anything when you actually get to where you're going. And while half of the game might have you moving from place to place, the other half is what you do when you arrive. The wide variety of spells is appreciated, but there's basically no reason to bother beyond a few favorites. Forspoken wants to be a game about hope and choice and community, and it's willing to hit you over the head with those themes explicitly to make sure it gets across its message, although it never manages to instill them organically, which is a real shame. We give Forspoken 2.5 stars out of 5.